There are few mediums that have evolved as rapidly and drastically as gaming. In the last decade alone, we've seen the rise of massive open-world experiences and Hollywood-level narratives that were unheard of in video games years ago. But this has led to a lot of modern games that force themselves to chase this pattern with mixed results. Too often we see titles released that seem to feel obligated to be these massive open worlds, but that ultimately end up filling that open world with nothing of substance. There's this hyper-focus on complexity without taking the steps to have it make sense in any meaningful way. Whether it's overcomplicated crafting systems, useless skill trees, or endless checklists of boring tasks to complete, these games add them to fit some ill-defined industry standard. Now don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with a complex, tightly written open-world experience if it's done right, but there's something to be said about simplicity. If you have a compelling story with incredible dialogue and great characters, but the gameplay is boring, vapid, and dull, you haven't made a video game, you made a movie. Most modern games fail to ask such a simple question. Is this fun? It's at this question that we are met with Astrobot. Honestly, it seems to be the very first question the developers at Team Asobi asked themselves. Released as a PlayStation 5 exclusive on September 6, 2024, you play as Astrobot on a mission to save various other PlayStation-themed robots from aliens and retrieve parts for your damaged PS5 mothership. Astrobot feels like, from top to bottom, a game made by people who genuinely love video games and the joy of playing them. It never pretends to be more complicated than it is. It's a pretty straightforward 3D platformer with some different mechanics appearing throughout the experience to keep it fresh and engaging. From the moment the experience begins, the game just exudes charm and personality that's almost impossible not to love. I mean, look at these little guys. They wave at you, they dance, and oh my god, is he flossing? Oh my god. Bravo, Team Asobi, I've seen enough. Give it Game of the Year again. Do it again. Oh my god, he's flossing. Oh my god, yes. As mentioned before, Astrobot won Game of the Year in 2024, and while it beat out some pretty stellar competition, I think it was completely deserved, despite some of the outrage at the time. I can see why some people would be upset or confused. It was by no means the biggest or longest game of 2024, and it didn't tell the most compelling narrative or have the most cinematic experience, but to me that's exactly why it deserved to win. The fun video game is a fun video game. Now that's not to say that any of the other nominees are not fun. Balatro, Elden Ring, Shadow of the Erdtree, and Black Myth Wukong, just to name a few, are all great experiences in their own right. But Astrobot winning feels like a reminder that at their core, video games as a medium aren't just about cinematic spectacle or how many hours you can squeeze out of a player, but about enjoying yourself and the time you spend playing. The effortless fun of Astrobot comes from every aspect of the game's design and the polish put on them by Team Asobi. Astrobot's gameplay may be simple, but it's not simplistic. What I mean by this is the gameplay is that of a classic 3D platformer like Crash Bandicoot or Super Mario 64, but the game consistently throws new gimmicks, gadgets, and mechanics at you to keep every level's experience unique. The base controls are incredibly tight and responsive, which in a platformer is integral to making the game feel good. The player must feel that their input translates directly to a character's action, and failure should only come from a player's own mistakes. In addition to this, Team Asobi ensured that there's a satisfying weight to every jump and every attack. Every action you do in this game feels so impactful and fun, because every action provides satisfying feedback. Both of these, coupled with the DualSense's controller's subtle haptic feedback responding to your surroundings and actions, make for an incredibly engaging experience. The same can be said for the various gadgets you use throughout the game. There are too many to go through them all individually here, but there are three that I will touch on. The Bulldog Booster ability lets you shoot forward quickly across gaps and through both enemies and breakable materials. Once again, there's a real sense of speed and impact whenever you boost forward, and the adaptive triggers give just the right amount of resistance to make each boost feel satisfying to complete. Then there's the Twin Frog Gloves. They extend to let you grab onto certain surfaces, swing around and pull objects to solve puzzles, and punch enemies from a distance. This has you play in a completely different way than before, scanning for all new things this ability lets you interact with. The third one that to me was worth mentioning was the time-slowing VR goggles. This to me is one of the gadgets that lets you get the most creative with the platforming. For a short burst, you can slow down time and jump on the now floating platforms or projectiles until they ultimately begin to move again at normal speed. It shifts your perspective on the level in an interesting way, allowing you to think through your path differently. Each of the gadgets, powers, and gimmicks, including the ones I mentioned, is explored and used thoroughly enough in their respective levels without becoming tedious. You have enough time to get creative with them and have fun before moving on to something completely fresh and new. This idea is one of Astrobot's greatest core qualities. It never outstays its welcome. What I mean by this is that the pacing of this game doesn't see you using the same core mechanics for hours at a time, and instead opts to introduce a new concept, let you have fun with it, and then move on to something else fun that this game has to offer. It has some of the best pacing of any 3D platformer that I've ever played. With that, the level design of Astrobot is also incredibly well done. There are around 80 plus levels in this game, including both main and secret stages. While relatively linear in their design, there are loads of hidden paths, secrets, collectibles, and other things to keep you engaged throughout. Each level has its own distinct design and aesthetic. Whether it's the animations of the backgrounds or the constant movement of characters and environments around the stage, each level is just brimming with life. While this game is a relatively easy experience, there are more challenging aspects of it, such as some of the secret levels, or collecting all of the puzzle pieces and hidden Astrobots. Finding all of the collectibles and completing all optional objectives requires more skill than the average casual player, but nothing too insanely difficult. Just a little extra content for those dedicated to platinum hunting. That's one of the most refreshing things about Astrobot to me. You can play it however you want to just have fun playing a video game. Elevating all of the personality of Astrobot in the background while you play is the music of this game. The score is composed and produced by Kenneth C.M. Young, who is a longtime collaborator with Sony. His previous work includes most notably Little Big Planet, a game with a very unique vibe and style that is reflected in its soundtrack. The full soundtrack of Astrobot features around 87 tracks, with the majority created by Young, and additional contributions from composers like Hirofumi Sasaki, Tadashi Yatabe, Kenmei Adachi, and Saichiko Miyano. The soundtrack itself is made up of mostly electronic, upbeat songs that are really just filled with so much joy. They are cheerful, memorable, and simple, but without ever feeling too repetitive or annoying. Each of the stages has their own original soundtrack to match the environment of the planet, further making each level its own unique experience. For example, in one of the levels with the jungle environment, you hear deep bass lines and bongos. In the more futuristic-looking levels, there are synthy electronic instrumentals. And then in the retro pixelated levels, there is a sort of 16-bit style to the music. The tracks are just so uplifting and enjoyable to play to, but still tailored to the planet that you're playing on. The soundtrack never overpowers the experience, but instead enhances it. It is catchy and energetic in a way that doesn't get on your nerves after playing for a while. And again, speaking back to the main idea of this video, it's just really fun. Some of the more specific mentions come from the scores of the PlayStation title-inspired levels that incorporate remixes of the source material soundtracks. There are entire levels dedicated to PlayStation franchises like God of War, Horizon, and Uncharted. Each of these stages features a reimagined version of the original game's music in an electronic Astrobot style. Bear McCreary, the composer responsible for the most recent God of War titles, praised Young's remix of the God of War theme from the level Bot of War, even telling Video Games Chronicle that Kenny's work on his music allowed him to appreciate it in a way he hadn't previously been able to, with it being redone in this fun, robo-electro-pop style. This to me is a testament to how Astrobot's music honors PlayStation's history while still standing uniquely on its own. As I mentioned before, Astrobot very intentionally honors gaming legacy, primarily that of Sony and PlayStation. I think in most other cases, modern media has trended towards leveraging nostalgia as some kind of cheap trick. Throw some recognizable scenery or characters on screen, play some familiar music, and hope that people's fond memories do all of the heavy lifting. I think on a surface level, it's understandable that someone could think that Astrobot does this, but I actually disagree. In fact, I would argue that Astrobot perfectly rides the line of using nostalgia while not relying on it completely. Throughout the game's levels, you can encounter around 151 Astrobot versions of iconic PlayStation characters that have been scattered throughout the different planets. These cameos don't overtake the experience, but rather enhance it, allowing you to find fun references to other games. I think what discredits any of the arguments for this being nostalgia bait is that you could remove every single cameo bot from the game and it plays exactly the same way. At its core, the game is strong enough to stand on its own. It would still be an exceptionally fun platformer with cool mechanics. These references are a celebration of the industry that this game and its developers seem to adore. Outside of the cameo bots, there are, as I brought up earlier, entire levels dedicated to specific franchises such as God of War, Horizon, Uncharted, and Ape Escape. While all of these levels are direct references to these games, you can totally play them all with no prior knowledge of the franchises just fine. If you are familiar with them, you will just get an enhanced experience, but all of these stages are still distinctly Astrobot. The references are respectful and celebratory, but the game does not rely on them to make these stages fun or interesting. Astrobot does that all on its own. I think the Ape Escape stage is particularly telling of this team's love for the gaming industry and its history. I say this because Team Asobi is made up of former Japan studio employees who created Ape Escape. There's a sincerity to Team Asobi revisiting their own legacy and fine-tuning, refurbishing, and improving their craft for a new generation of gamers. It's this sincerity that I think sets Astrobot's use of nostalgia apart from most modern media. Team Asobi clearly has a lot of passion for video games, and you can see that in every detail of their own game. Astrobot is an incredible example of honoring the past while not being stuck in it or reliant on it. They celebrate what makes gaming special not only through this, but by crafting an experience that by every definition is a fun video game. At the beginning of this video, I said that most modern games fail to ask the question, is this fun? It seems so obvious, but many of these modern games completely overlook it. Astrobot does not forget this question from start to finish. Team Asobi made a polished, enjoyable experience with a clear vision and design. When there's no empty open world, no tiresome crafting system, no filler content, what you're left with is Astrobot, a video game, and one that is pure, unadulterated fun.